This video is brought to you by BTI Institute, a New Jersey leader in certification-based management training.
Okay, well, this is a session on learn how to quickly identify some of the things your Scrum Master should not be doing. And this is a video by Adam Weisbart. And then we're going to actually use this session to talk about it and pick it apart. And so let's get started.
I have a problem. I can't get access to the error database in a consistent way.
That's not an impediment. In this retrospective today, I've got a list of 10 improvements I'd like you guys to address for the next sprint. Hey, Kara, I'm gonna need you guys to get more work in progress. It's pretty good, but you need more stuff in there. Cool, thanks. Awesome. Guys, that was our fastest stand-up yet. That was only 40 minutes. Yeah. The pointing's not good.
Not so much. Hey, I was just reading this, Adam, and it says Scrum is all about going faster. What's taking you so long?
Get back to work. There's no way this story is a 13. This is more like a 2. All right, so we'll kick off this retrospective with 5 minutes of silent writing. Silent writing. That's not an impediment. As your Scrum Master and product owner, these are the stories I need you to commit to this sprint.
My computer was stolen in the break-in last night, so I can't get any work done until I get a new one.
Have you heard of paper?
Hey, Adam, I'm going to need to have this feature demoed this afternoon. You can get it done, right? Great.
Oh, no
thanks.
problem. I'm just going to add this to your work in progress. Yeah, continuous integrations never helped anybody. Just skip that. Oh, no, Chris, listen. We're doing Scrum now, so we don't have to share that sort of stuff with management.
3 months, and management thinks we can get it done in another sprint, and I just don't understand.
Hey guys, surprise! Our CEO is joining us for today's retrospective, but just do everything normally. Hey guys, you're totally flailing, so I'm going to cut this sprint a couple days short. Where are you going?
Bio?
Do you have a task for that?
No.
All right, guys. Here's how you let our company down this sprint. I was just thinking, you guys have a lot to do this sprint, so let's make your sprint 3 weeks instead of 2. We'll just change it up. Cool.
Okay.
No,
Hey,
it's crazy.
Disagree and commit. That's not an impediment. So are we calling this story done? Close enough. The ayes have it. You guys are doing great this sprint, but the other team's velocity is a little bit higher. Could you pick it up just a little bit? 5 minutes of silent writing. Hey. No, now's a fine time. I'm just in a retrospective. A job at Google? Yeah. I'm not going to be here tomorrow, so if you guys could just do your daily Scrum by email, just at whatever time you like, just shoot it on email. That's not an impediment. That's great. The other team's velocity is much better than yours, so I'm going to need you guys to work late tonight, though.
That we should put some of these stories down, promote them into, smaller stories.
Check it out. Check it out. The cat's eating a cheeseburger. That can't be healthy at all.
I wanted to wait till it showed that no team members were harmed in the making of this film. And so what we're going to do now is we're actually going to go to the beginning and actually pick it apart. I'm going to stop the video at certain portions, and I'm going to ask everybody what they saw wrong. And we're just going to take it step by step through that. And that's going to turn this into more of a Agile Discussion Group format. I also wanted to give a little bit of history of Adam. I met Adam when I went to the Global Scrum Gathering in Austin last year. And I was very lucky to participate in a workshop for facilitators where he actually invented Build Your Own Scrum. And it was like an all-day workshop where he handed out construction paper, scissors, glue sticks, and had people actually paste on construction paper Scrum as they saw it. And then basically it was a way to do training. And his whole point of that training is to teach Scrum without PowerPoints. And so Adam, when you see this video, if you know Adam, it's just like him. It's his personality. So it's like perfect. So let's get started.
And just to supplement what Bob said, because it's interactive, you might hear a lot of voices. I'll monitor the chats as well, because if you feel, there's a lot going on, feel free to type in some stuff and, we'll talk and we'll respond. So take it away, Bob.
Sure, thanks, Nitin. And also I got feedback. Sometimes there might be a slight video lag. So when I stop the video, I'll repeat what Adam said. So just in, again, technology is not always perfect.
I have a problem. I can't get access to the error database in a consistent way.
That's not an impediment. In this
Okay, the developer said, I have a problem. I can't get access to the database in a certain way. And Adam said, that's not an impediment. Any thoughts about that? What's wrong with that?
Well, one of the things that you need to do when you're on an agile team is be able to have access to all of the components within the organization in order to, have proper workflow. So if I'm a team member and I'm saying that this is a problem for me, I don't have access to it, the Scrum Master shouldn't tell me that that's not a problem.
That was great. And anybody else?
Yeah, as a servant leader, I mean, he should be stepping up to arrange for the access that his developer needs.
Both of you guys were spot on. As a Scrum Master, your job is to help the team identify and remove impediments. A lot of times a mistake is made where basically the team just throws the impediment at the Scrum Master, but the Scrum Master, if they're really trying to help the team, they should help the team member resolve it. And then if they can't, then basically have a Scrum Master may possibly work with the product owner or other members on the management team to help get that resolved. And then Nitin, if you want to say anything, just jump in.
Yep, agreed with everything. And even on the chat, someone's hit it right on the head. So Mary said, don't tell the team what is an impediment. Let the team decide what is or is not the impediment.
This retrospective today, I've got a list of 10 improvements
Also,
I'd like you guys to
leadership
address.
style seems to be lacking in this example.
Okay, Adam just said, at this retrospective today, I have this list of 10 items that I need you to do in this sprint. What's wrong with that?
Should be eliciting the response.
Sorry, Sam.
What I was going to say is that the Scrum Master does not know what needs to happen in the retrospective. It should be the team coming up with, what their observation is and what they want to improve on.
Right, and then what else was wrong with what happened? Adam is the Scrum Master.
The product owner that manages the backlog, right? So the Scrum Master ought not to be bringing these things forward. It should be the product owner.
Right. And then plus the first person was totally correct. During a retrospective, you don't talk about. You talk about the previous sprint. You don't talk about the next sprint. You talk about history. You talk about what happened over the last 2 or 3 week duration of your sprint. And then the purpose of that is for the team to actually come together and identify ways for the team to improve the next sprint. Sprint planning is where you identify items that you want the team to work on next. And so, the person that said that the product owner needs to identify that's correct. It's not the Scrum Master's job. The Scrum Master's job is to help the product owner position the items so that the dev team can understand them and then volunteer. If you're following a good practice of Scrum, you'd have 2 sprint planning meetings. Sprint planning meeting part 1 is when you actually meet with the group of stakeholders and the product owner and the dev team and basically talk about what the product owner wants to have in this sprint. And then from that, you have a subset of the backlog items. You then come together in sprint planning part 2, and this is a much longer meeting where the dev team will actually take a look at each item and decide if they can actually handle it in the sprint, and then basically put story points on it, volunteer, and then that in essence becomes your sprint backlog. So any other comments?
For the next sprint. Hey, Kara, I'm gonna need you guys to get more work in progress.
Can you summarize it
pretty
well,
good,
Bob?
but you need more stuff in there.
Similar comments in the chat as well.
All right, this next one, he walked over to one of the dev team members. And actually, per the new Scrum guy, we don't call them dev team members, we call them developers. And he's saying, hey, Kara, you need to get more work in progress. What's wrong with that?
Exact opposite of what you want for WIP.
Right now there's like 4 things work in progress. And the second thing is your Scrum Master does not tell you what to do. That's totally wrong. You do not tell developers to get more work in progress. That's out of bounds.
Yeah, and to improve the flow, you want to reduce the number of work in progress, not increase it.
Absolutely, that's correct.
Other one is, the Scrum Master does not know the rules of engagement, probably. So that's another thing which might help.
Yes, you could basically establish team norms or something like that. I think, yes.
Is that what you were alluding to, Chris?
Huh?
With the rules, is that what you were alluding to with the rules of engagement?
Yeah, basically, any team, right? Any you got to come with some kind of a ground rule, do's and don'ts. So that way you have some kind of a set rules and engagement rules. So what a Scrum Master can do, what team should do. So once you draw that line, this kind of mishap doesn't happen. And probably, a Scrum Master talking to a coach, whether he's doing the right thing, probably may be a good thing. Bring a coach in, once in a way, let him observe, see what's going wrong. Might be a better way of,
Yeah, I've referred to what you're talking about, Chris, as team norms and working agreements, but it's in essence the same thing, where basically you're establishing a way the team members want to work together. Nitin, you have a great example of that. Why don't you share that when you joined the team?
Whenever I join a new team, we're huddled in a room first time, and I say, hey, I'm an outsider, and this is as a coach, and sometimes I take on the Scrum Master role temporarily. And I said, how do you want to work with me? And that question seems to be a little odd to people, and I help them maybe get sticky notes, get post-its, write one sentence, and they'll start scribbling eventually. And then we'll put it up on the wall, and we'll just take a look. And there's some great things out there. And I said, well, now that you kind of know how you want to work with this new person on this team, this outsider, you folks have been together a lot longer. How do you want to work with each other? And very interestingly, they start scribbling again, silent writing as an exercise. And there's some great stuff out, like help a brother out, or do this or do that. And this is how we start getting into some team norms and some team agreements. And this would be great if you're just introducing a new Scrum Master or getting an Agile coach. So this will reduce conflict downstream. So all good points from Chris as well.
Cool, thanks. Awesome. Guys, that was our fastest stand-up yet. That was
Any
only
other
40
thoughts
minutes.
on this, or should we look up the next crazy thing that comes out of Adam's mouth?
I just ran the next segment. He goes, that was awesome. This was our fastest one yet. It was 45 minutes. What's wrong with that?
45 minutes for
45 minutes, no more than 15 minutes.
Yeah, no more than 15.
Yeah, only 30 minutes long.
Yeah, I would hate. Could you imagine being on that team if that was a short one? You'd probably being tortured, probably over an hour each day as they.
He is impeding.
And then I'm kind of just throwing things out there to generate discussion. And as you can see, we're only 30 seconds into this video, and we've already probably talked for almost 15 minutes about this. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. How could the Scrum Master help manage that? What tools does the Scrum Master have? Because they don't really participate. They're optional. It's really a developer meeting.
So they can guide the conversation. So I joined a little bit late. Okay to just jump in?
Oh, absolutely. That's what this is. It's a discussion group. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I think how they guide it. So I just had an experience last week. I'm on a project, and our kind of leader was out for a couple of days, and I just run my meetings, a little bit different. And we're both using the same board, but I think it's guiding those conversations, making sure we're not going down rabbit holes, we're not getting too down into the weeds. If that starts to happen, let those parties know, hey, do that as a breakout. We're going to move on to the next thing. So just sort of control what's happening in those sessions, because they can quickly, get out of hand and start to stretch out really long, So you just, good judgment, I guess, as to, when conversations are getting outside of the scope of what you want to do in your sprint.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I was just going to say, from experience, normally it's getting into problem solving, which is not appropriate for a stand-up.
Yeah, you're not, as a Scrum Master, I don't think so. You're helping the team to self-manage or self-organize. You're always interfering with their work.
Really, what a Scrum Master can do is, what you want to do is train the team to do that themselves. The minute two people or three people start getting into a deeper conversation, you say, hey, can we cover this after the daily Scrum? And then what I normally do with my teams is I always have an announcement at the end. I say the daily Scrum is over. And then basically that gives permission for everybody to leave if they don't want to. People that want to have the conversations can stay. And 9 times out of 10, most people do stay, but that's how you keep it time boxed. There's also this thing called a time timer. It's a little bit harder now that things are remote, but if you're all together in the same room, there's this really nice time box. You can get it from Amazon for like less than $30. And basically you can set it at 15 minutes. And then basically you can keep an eye on it and have the team members keep an eye on it. So that way you don't go past the 15 minutes. So, there's different tools a Scrum Master can use. Any other comments?
Just want to supplement what Bob said, which is key. Make sure that you call out and conclude the daily Scrum just by saying, hey, the daily Scrum is concluded and now it's an open forum, or now it's an open session. And that's going to help a lot. Everything else has come out in the chat as well. Focus on the 3 things that have to be addressed. Get some visuals for timing. Don't be a distraction. So anything else?
And interestingly, in the new Scrum Guide, they took those 3 things out. So it's going to be, I'm trying to sell our session in January with Nitin and I when we talk about the new Scrum Guide. So
yeah, so it's interesting. Yeah, the daily Scrum description has removed time box just in that section, but it has been referenced elsewhere. So I just get concerned if people are starting off with Scrum. They should know what a time box is or that concept. If you're already in it, then it's a non-issue.
So it's Larry, and maybe just building on that, Nitin, a little bit. I have seen it go the other way, where a Scrum Master was so concerned about the 15 minutes that they really cut off important conversations that were going on. So, I like to handle that as a guideline, but just not to where the tail wags the dog because of that time box.
No, actually, the 15 minutes, basically there are only 3 things you do, right? What happened? What did you do? So where are we? Any impediments? You only answer 3 questions. If you want to discuss, it's more like a parking lot. You should take it to the parking lot. That's all it is. So 15 minutes is only to answer 3 things.
Yeah, I think if it is a 7-person team, which is probably a big team, then also 15 minutes should be enough to answer these questions.
Yes.
And if there is any important discussion is emerging out of that, whatever has been told, that should be taken off after the Scrum, not during the Scrum. Because that might take an hour or so. Why hold up everybody?
Exactly, that's spot on. And then after the Scrum meeting, if they're not interested, people can just leave. That's what you want.
I think Larry's touching upon something interesting and important, the pulse of the team, the mood. And if there are truly those important, critical conversations, as an outsider or facilitator or Scrum Master, do I want to interrupt that or not? And what stage is the team in? Have they been doing this for a while? Is it okay? I might simply throw an open-ended question to this team and say, what do we do if we feel the meeting is going longer, and see what happens from there. But the majority of the teams today, and this is again the Scrum value of focus, what they're finding is developers like more time, such as, hey, having a longer sprint or more time to be developing things. But it's kind of counterintuitive. If you reduce the sprint cycle, there seems to be better focus and so on. But what I see you do and what I'm hearing is really just feeling the pulse of the moment, and that's important as well. So we have to balance that out with what the guide is asking us to do. Anyway,
And then another important point somebody mentioned, I have heard about Scrum Masters cutting the meeting short at 15 minutes and not letting everybody speak. That is like a big no. Every developer must take a turn. Do not, don't let that time box do that to you.
Yeah, that is okay with the smaller team. If you have a 9-member team, it may be different. Like you have like 5 or 6 in a team, then you can limit to 15 minutes.
So, yeah, that was actually going to be part of my question. If you're consistently going over, or is that potentially an indicator that you're breaking some other sort of tenets of the Scrum, right? Like that you have too much work that's in progress in the sprint. You have too many members on your team. Those things can that sort of be an outcome of that. So you've sort of broken some other tenets, and you need to go back and look at that. Like, why are we going over consistently?
I think that's a great point and good question. Go ahead, Bob.
The things you identified are really correct. What it could be is like what you say, it could be too much work in progress. Then the second thing could be is the team could be too big. When I first joined a new team, there was 12 people. So how could you possibly get through a daily scrum in 15 minutes with 12 people? So my first suggestion was let's break into 2. Let's be 2 teams of 6. And so team size is a big dynamic, and then too much work in progress. The other thing is possibly get people to encourage more swarming, where basically people will, all team members will start swarming on one particular item at a time. It doesn't sound efficient, but it is. You end up finishing items and then moving on to the next instead of having a lot of work in progress that doesn't get done. There's definitely things that you should be looking at, and there's really no reason it should be more than 15 minutes unless your team size is gigantic or something like that.
Yeah.
And then that has a domino effect as well.
Good, Nitin.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the other thing I notice is that when it's taking too long, a lot of times people are doing more of a status instead of just sticking to the 3 questions. So you almost focus them on those. If you force them to stay to the format of those 3 questions, what'd you do yesterday, what are you doing today, and what's impeding you? And only scope it to that, it flows really quickly and everyone enjoys it. It makes it a lot better.
Yeah, if it goes to status conversation, then they're not maintaining the information radiator. So that's key. So if that is not there, then you talk about status.
And I also have noticed that if it goes too long, people start getting distracted and they are not actually focusing on the conversation, the discussion that is happening, which again is not good for the teamwork in general.
Right, because it's too long. And I have a product owner that's great, where the minute people start giving status updates, they're like, that's not what this is for, knock it off. And people immediately snap back. That's having a product owner that really understands Scrum.
Good of him, yeah.
Yeah, for stand-up, what I normally do is I put 3 things right in front in this one. So I just point, if any conversation goes beyond, stick to these 3 things. So they got to be reminded, probably.
And again, it's the Scrum Master's job to enforce the Scrum process. So that's where the Scrum Master can help. They can basically say, hey guys, we're giving a little bit too much detail. Let's maybe have side conversations after or something like that. All right, we're up to 30 seconds, so let's go.
Yeah, the pointing's not good. Not so much.
Hey, I was just reading this, Adam, and it says Scrum is all about going faster. What's taking you so long?
So what's wrong with that?
So Bob, I don't know if you lost sharing or if you could just repeat the video.
Yeah, sure. The manager comes over and says, "Hey, Adam, Scrum is all about going faster. What are you guys doing wrong?"
Scrum Master shouldn't allow the executive to interrupt his ongoing conversation.
That's an interesting observation. I didn't see that before, but you're right.
That means the other thing is, the manager is not involved in what's happening with the sprints. So he should be involved. If he was involved at every stage, probably he would not come and, stakeholder involvement, basically. That's what it is.
I also think the manager has not really understood Scrum fully.
That is
He has not been trained in how Scrum works. So the organization itself is not really primed for Agile.
Yeah, I would agree that there is opportunity for education there overall. So some bit of coaching is sort of needed for the Agile framework and mindset.
I think Scrum Master is supposed to be protecting the team, and that didn't feel like protecting them.
And Agile is not about going faster and faster and faster. Again, it is giving pieces of features
MVP
on a continuous basis.
It's MVPs, right? Minimum viable product.
Minimum viable product, and keep adding to that.
Yeah.
So again, it is a question of understanding of Agile.
Yeah.
Right. And then if teams can go faster, there's like high performance team patterns that Jeff Sutherland wrote. He wrote a book called Doing Twice the Work in Half the Time. And I was like, oh no, when that book came out, I thought he was totally overselling Scrum. But I actually practiced the patterns with my team, and we started going faster, and we were not working overtime, and our quality was staying up. So it's really just having an understanding of the team and what Agile can provide. And unfortunately, sometimes executives will come in and immediately expect the team to go faster when they're just getting started. It takes time. The team has to go through the retrospective process and constantly be removing things that are slowing them down. And when you do that, you start going faster. It's just an amazing thing.
I think Barbara has put in a very nice comment here. Sometimes the team needs to slow down in order to speed up.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to start the video again. I'm going to bring it back a little bit to give it a chance to catch up.
Scrum is all about going faster. What's taking you so long?
Get back to work. There's no way this story is a 13. This is more like a 2. All right, so.
Okay, Adam goes, this story is no way a 13. This is more like a 2. What's wrong with that?
He's not part of the team. The team.
He doesn't decide.
He doesn't. Yeah, he should not be even involved in story points.
He doesn't manage the sizing.
Yeah.
He manages the conversation about the sizing.
He's only facilitating, supposed to.
He helps the team use story points. He helps the team, go through that whole estimation process, but he does not provide the estimates.
Yeah.
He helps facilitate the process so that they can get good estimates, but he doesn't estimate.
Yeah.
And I have an experience I want to share. I was on a call. There was probably 50 people. It was like we were doing sprint planning, and an Agile manager who managed the developers. We were estimating stories, and exactly that happened. He yells out, the team said 8, and the manager goes, no way, that should be a 3.
Yeah.
And so it does happen. And what I did, instead of making the scene, I just noted that and then talked to the manager after the call, because you don't want to embarrass people or make things ugly.
Yeah, but if you inflate or deflate the story point, that's going to affect the velocity. Basically, that's what's going to happen. You did the wrong estimate, and then either you finish it early or you finish it too late.
And so if it gets repackaged, it becomes an opportunity, though, to teach and coach, by reframing it as a question. I'm curious, how did you arrive at those points?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. That would have been a much better thing for the manager to say. You should, you could say like, what makes you feel that it's an 8, and that would have been a very safe conversation. It would not have been threatening.
But even the other team members can do the same thing. Well, he said 8, you said 3. Let's talk about the difference.
Yes, that's part of story planning poker. When you do that, when you go through the estimates, like say you have 6 people estimating, like 3 people said a 5, 1 person said an 8, 1 person said a 3. What you would normally do is go to the 8 person that said 8 is, why do you think it's an 8? And then you go to the person with the 3 and say, why do you think it's a 3? And then have the team talk about it and then vote again. Again, you got to be careful because you may never get to 100% everybody agreeing. But if you're within a Fibonacci sequence, just ask the team, what do you want to go with? Because it doesn't matter that much, one Fibonacci sequence. It's really not going to have a major impact.
Yeah, actually, no.
Supplement what Bob has said.
T-shirt sizing is the easier way of, you will have a minimum conflict, small, medium, and large, so that way there are not too many numbers to play around.
Some teams may not do that, especially as they've evolved and they need metrics and numbers, but I do agree with the concept. And just to go back a small step, what Bob said, one of the techniques is indeed planning poker, and I believe Jeff Sutherland said, hey, just do it 2 times. Because if you keep at it, team members can say, let's do it a 3rd time, let's do it a 4th time. It's endless. And again, we have to just remind ourselves, it's an estimate. You're going to learn from the effort. Just do 1 or 2 rounds and then take it from there. And that's it. And here's a somewhat advanced question or concept or curveball. What if the Scrum Master was part of the dev team? Would it be okay for this person to estimate then?
Then he is not a Scrum Master.
Right.
All right. I was
multiple hats.
Yeah, and I wasn't talking about that. I was just trying to find a better way to challenge that person. If you don't want them to override what the developer is saying.
Right, agreed with you completely. So Scrum does allow for a Scrum Master to be part of the dev team, but it gets murky. You're wearing 2 hats, and what are you doing? Are you being a facilitator, or are you representing yourself as a member of the team? How goes it? So it's a very odd dynamic, but it could happen. In Adam's video, it's very clear. The Scrum Master is just a Scrum Master and shouldn't be doing or saying things which should be coming in from other people.
Yeah, if you wear multiple hats, probably you'll bring your personal bias too, because you're not basically facilitating, you're basically getting involved with the team also. So it's hard.
Indeed, and which would again possibly stir up conversations on team agreements and team norms and whether the team recognizes this dynamic. And if it is to happen, how would the team address it? Do they need to separate these 2? Do they need to talk to somebody, say, hey, we need a dedicated Scrum Master as compared to someone wearing 2 hats? So a lot of things that could go on with this. But again, this is one of the curveballs and exceptions. It's usually not the norm.
All right, let's get going.
13. This is more like a 2. All right, so we'll kick off this retrospective with 5 minutes of silent writing. Silent writing. That's not an impediment. As your Scrum Master and Product Owner, these are the stories I need you to commit to this sprint.
Okay, what was wrong with that? As your Scrum Master and Product Owner, these are the stories I need you to commit to in this sprint.
Again, the team decides.
Thank you.
and even before that, the first part also, silent writing, but he is the one who keeps speaking, keeps talking again and again. Yeah, silent writing.
Yes.
He is not being a role model. He is not really a leader.
Yes.
You follow what you preach.
And there was
you shouldn't
one
be
other
the product owner and the Scrum Master.
Thank you for saying that, because that was the one thing that really stood out for me on that one. Yes, you could. There's a separate role for the product owner, a separate role for the Scrum Master.
Gee, what a double-headed dragon. Can you imagine? They're just going to be added. I'd hate to be part of that. It's like the evil twin almost. And it's interesting, just today with the release of the new Scrum Guide, they have explicitly put in one Scrum Master for the team, one product owner for the team. So yeah, we don't want that double-headed dragon.
My computer was stolen in the break-in last night, so I can't get any work done until I get a new one.
Have you heard of paper?
Hey, Adam, I'm going to need to have this feature demoed this afternoon. You can get it done, right?
I don't know if you're sharing the video, but we're not seeing that.
You're not seeing the video that I'm sharing?
No.
Yes, yes.
I'm seeing it. It's probably Nitin's connection is probably slower.
It could just be me.
All right. What just happened was a manager came in and said, "Hey, Adam, I need you to do this work in this sprint." And so what Adam's doing right now is he's taking the item and he's going to immediately put it into work in progress. What's wrong with that?
He has to run it by product owner. Product owner is supposed to be, that's his role. If any new requirement comes in, you have to run by product owner.
It's supposed to go into the backlog.
Backlog, and it needs to be prioritized.
Right. It has to be brought in during the sprint planning from the backlog into the sprint backlog.
And it needs to be prioritized too.
And if anything is brought in, most likely something else will be taken out.
Yeah.
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 Part of prioritization.
Everybody's saying the right things, and that's exactly. It's actually called a reciprocal commitment. It's actually a commitment between the developers and the product owner that when they do their sprint planning part 2 meeting, they're actually committing to delivering items in the sprint backlog at the end of the sprint. Now, if somebody comes in and throws another item in there, that's not fair. So one person said that that has to come through the product owner. That's totally correct. Even the product owner is not allowed to do that. But there are exceptions because, life is life and it's reality. If there's a production defect and it's actually impacting end users, yes, you do take that interrupt because production always comes first. But then the product owner needs to understand that it's going to impact other items in the sprint as well. So, there's a lot of variables that you have to be thinking about.
Bob, isn't it part of DevOps? If these things keeps happening very frequently, it's not Scrum. Basically, you're trying to bring any defect coming back to the sprint again. It becomes more like a DevOps.
My Scrum teams actually do DevOps. There's some people that like to have a separate production organization, but the way my teams work, and Nathan can share how his teams work, is we actually build the feature, we put it into production, and we support it in production. And what we do is we assign one person on the team, one person volunteers, I shouldn't say the word assign, where they actually handle production issues. And then that way, the team is not distracted. Now, if that person gets overwhelmed, that person has the right to reach to other team members for help. And that's when you start impacting what the sprint backlog is.
Okay, yeah.
So in a case like that, how often do production issues actually interrupt the work that's going on in a sprint? Do you find the product owner has to start pulling work out of a sprint in order to accommodate production fixes?
So there's two answers to that. One is sometimes what they'll do is they'll guide, and some people will actually put storylines within the sprint so they have a dedicated amount of capacity dedicated for production. The other thing I've seen in teams is they call it an interrupted engineer, where you basically have one person in the sprint team take care of all production issues so that everyone else can focus. So, but yeah, it's never an ideal situation. You sort of have to plan it and hopefully it works well. At least that's what I've seen.
So if I could supplement what's been said, this is a great opportunity for a Scrum Master or a coach to ask the question, what happens when? And in this case, what happens when there's an interrupt? What happens when there's a production type interrupt? What happens when there's a defect type interrupt, right? So the sooner you can address these, depending on, the product being shipped out, whether it's in production or not, the severity, whether there's things related to compliance or legal. And again, no two teams might be giving you the same answer. You're going to be better off making things a little bit smoother down the line. And there are different ways of handling it that are coming out from these discussions.
And just to add to what Nitin said, what we do is we ask for a volunteer for a dev team member. And what we do is we set up a rotation because nobody wants to do production support. That's, a skilled developer doesn't want to fix bugs. So what they do is if you have 5 developers, you just basically say, okay, for this sprint, this developer, next sprint, this developer, and basically you do a rotation that way. And then that way, every 2 months, you're doing production support. So, you're not getting stuck doing it week after week. So, there's ways to manage it. And then to answer that one question, what you would do is if you find that you're really being overwhelmed by bugs, instead of having one person handle bugs, you have 2. Basically, you get maybe 2 people to volunteer until you get things under control. Now, your quality shouldn't really be that bad where you're having that many bugs, but sometimes you have to adapt.
Mm-hmm. So
question
here.
Sorry, go ahead.
So I'm just curious, in anyone's experience here, how has the CI/CD type of an environment contributed or not contributed to these bugs being reintroduced into the dev work? And then, how much of an interruption has, have you guys seen from your own experience there as a result of the CI/CD model?
I haven't experienced the CD side of it when you say continuous deployment. Companies like Amazon, they do that where I think they release every minute or something the last time I read. Probably it's even quicker than that. But CI, continuous integration, is a development practice it's what helps the team work better because they're integrating their code as they write it instead of waiting till the end of the sprint. And then basically, say you have 5 people writing code and then 5 people deploy everything into the Git repository, and everything starts breaking because of all these integration issues. So now you have to look back at 2 or 3 weeks worth of work to fix it. Now, if you do continuous integration, your developers are actually pushing their code continuously, maybe once, twice, 3 times a day. And then that way, if they break something, it's easy to fix because they only have a couple hours worth of work that they have to go back and take a look at to see what broke the build. So that's where CI works a lot. And does anybody have experience with the CD? Because I haven't done that. I haven't seen that actually.
Let's see, that's actually part of DevOps again, CI/CD, if you.
But continuous deployment means continuous deployment to production, right? So
exactly, yes.
Yeah, but I work in a bank and we're happy to just do it once every 3 weeks. So.
Yeah, I think, if you have I haven't done continuous delivery, but I think especially if you have multiple Scrum teams with a single product owner and everybody's kind of taking their work, as each of the teams are checking things in, you want to make sure that you have an automated testing going on so that if another Scrum team, checks in code, you're going to immediately know if it broke something and all the teams can be alerted and address it.
Absolutely.
And automated testing teams, are they reliable enough from your experience?
It's basically a scaled agile, right? In scaled agile, that's what you do. You have a release train going on, and you basically keep monitoring multiple teams. Like when you coordinate with the multiple teams, any dependencies or anything, you keep watch on a release train.
Even before scaled agile or flavors of agility, I was working with a team that was deploying to production every 2 weeks. The team grew into 2, then grew into maybe 2.5, if you could call it that. I think it's an evolution, so just keep it in mind. If you are working with Scrum teams, and they are certainly growing now, and they want to scale, they need to have good engineering practices or some engineering practices, but even that comes with some pain. So exercise some patience and some caution, and know this: if you're going to be pushing out from hundreds of lines of code to thousands to millions and so on and so forth, something might happen. Sometimes you fumble. But interestingly, what you find, and forget Scrum, forget agility, forget DevOps, I'm just thinking of being a developer cascading style sheets or CSS. Amazon could go from putting in a Christmas theme banner towards the holidays, from a Thanksgiving type thing to something else by changing just a little snippet of code. And that little snippet was so efficient that it just hit all the servers, all the pages globally, right? If you can have global success, you can also have global challenges. That gets again into your quality of code, your CI, your CD, how you deploy. So I would just say, if you're heading that way, your teams are evolving and getting into some level of maturity, and just be a little patient with that. So again, just my 2 cents, irrespective of any terminology we can throw out there.
All right.
How tightly is that tied in with your code management software, right? So I just recently we have a particular application that was having a lot of changes to it, and we have a production stack and a project stack, and stuff that was pulled down into the project stack needed to do what was called a wraparound to bring over some of the changes that had happened in production, and there was an issue that occurred in that. So we wound up finding some problems later on where there were discrepancies in the code. And then just the level of change that we had. So, we had enhancements that were happening in the production stack. It's development still within the production environment. And then stuff being brought down into a project stack, which is like a dev environment that then moves up into our quality, which is the same stack where we would be doing production type changes, right? That go into the weekly releases that we would do. So and I'm not anymore a coder. I used to be, and we had software that I really liked for managing the code. If some of the issues that we're facing now, I'm really questioning: are we using the code management tools, the software management tools correctly, or why we're even facing some of these issues? But I just think it's also, there's overlapping changes at this point where we've got, somebody's making a change for an enhancement, somebody's making a change for a project, and that's, just maybe creating some of this. So maybe too many people working on the same objects at the same time, even though it's different, pieces of code within there. So I don't know, just a question, I guess, is anybody
Yeah, it sounds like, you really have to depend heavily on automated testing to manage that, because there's no way you can manually test that level of change happening so frequently. And so what we do is we always we push for over 80% code coverage on our tests and stuff like that. And we're always looking at the reports that come out of Jenkins and GitLab and all that. And that's ways to manage it, and that's where you get those really highly experienced and highly paid technical people that really understand all those technologies and are able to actually get that set up.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we only have like less than 5 minutes left, because I want to leave a couple minutes for some announcements. So I'm going to let this play a little bit longer and just stop it.
This is a couple work in progress. Yeah. Continuous integrations never helped anybody.
Okay, tell me what's wrong with that. That was crazy, right? Continuous integration never helped anybody. Okay.
Just skip that. Oh no, Chris, listen. We're doing Scrum now, so we don't have to share that sort of stuff with management.
3 months, and management thinks we can get it done in another sprint, and I just don't understand.
Hey guys, surprise!
I think we just had an
Our
extensive
CEO
conversation
is joining
that
us
went into
for
CI
today's
and
retrospective,
CD
but
practices.
just do everything
And,
normally. Hey guys, you're totally flailing, so I'm going to cut this sprint a couple days short.
engineering practices.
Where are you going?
For a good Scrum team, and particularly one
do you have a
that's
task for that?
scaling. So I hope that's
All right,
can
guys.
be echoed and we
Here's
hear
how you let our
on
company
chats.
down this sprint. I was just thinking, you guys have a lot to do this sprint, so let's make your sprint 3 weeks instead of 2. We'll just change it up.
Okay, I can't let that one go. You guys have a lot to do. Let's make this week, spend 3 weeks instead of 2. Come on. What do you guys think of that?
No.
Yes, thank you. You're allowed to change the duration, but it's up to the team. Basically, if you're doing 2 weeks, the team can decide during a retrospective. They might say, hey, let's try 3 weeks. And what you do is you let the team do 3 weeks, but just don't do it once. Do it for like a few sprints to see how it works. But it is okay to change the duration, but you just don't do it ad hoc like that because you'll never get a rhythm.
Isn't it decided during the release planning? You know, like when you have a release plan, and basically that's where you decide what can be delivered at what time, and how the sprint is going to go, how the cadence is going to go. The sprint basically defines the cadence of delivery.
Right, but your release plan talks about when you're going to come to an end. You know, when you're going to.
That is right.
When
so
you're going to get to
basically,
done.
you take the starting point and the end point, and you decide what are you going to produce, and in what frequency. Either it is 2 weeks or 3 weeks. No, how are you going to deliver it? Every 3 weeks MVPs, or 2 weeks. That's where you decide most of the times.
I would do it a little differently. I work with teams where they did not have a release plan or release timeline as such. There are some ginormous companies as such as well that they say, hey, we will release when a feature is ready. When that'll be ready, we're not sure. We'll figure it out. But when's a good time to have a checkpoint? Go a little smaller. Certainly if you have that insight and you want to do it that way, that's fine. But I would just caution you, is that coming from upper management, top management, or are you hearing members of your dev team say, we're fine with a 2-week checkpoint?
So in that case, don't you use Kanban? That's better way. You have whips, and then you can just keep continuously. You keep getting the product backlog as it keeps moving from one stage to another.
You may not. You could borrow the visualizations from Kanban. That's fine too. But I think from here, just in Adam is saying is it okay for someone to dictate that, hey, let's just switch the sprint cycle? And if so,
you can't.
What are the pros or cons?
So
that's the thing. Also, product owner, as a former product, I'd be very concerned in my predictive models and so on. Given, every 2 weeks, the team is doing something. This is the known velocity. All of a sudden, they're saying, well, let's just switch to 3 weeks. What's going to happen? What do I go to the stakeholders with? So there's a duality there. There's domino effect as well.
Yeah.
Seth, were you saying something? I mean, talking or someone else?
Bob, let me just kind of wish everybody happy holidays, happy Thanksgiving, and a very happy time for 2021. Let's hope that next year will be much, much better than this year. So thank you very much for joining all these programs for this year. And I look forward to seeing you all again next year.